Thanks for joining us on another episode of The Grind. Here's your host, JB.
Hey, welcome back to The Grind. Two times in a week, man. Something must be wrong to see us that much. No, it's good to be with you guys. Obviously, trying to play catch up a little bit and squeeze in these episodes between the action and varsity gym. Coming off an exciting win on Tuesday. We'll get to Coach Bentley here in just a second and chat about that. But before we do, go ahead and retweet, share, subscribe, wherever it is, whenever it is that you're listening. Go ahead and help us get the word out there, the good word about Appalachian State Wrestling. I would tell you what, I'm pretty excited. I'm not going to say we've had much to do in it, but I think the word about App State Wrestling is there's a burning that's happening, at least within the Twitter space, about App State Wrestling. So it's going to be interesting to watch how that grows. If you're on App Nation Twitter, you'll see that there's some people that are starting to catch on about the action in varsity gyms. So that's exciting for us, and I know Coach appreciates that and seeing the fans out there and both the student athletes and the staff. So it's good to see. I've seen some people recently comment about attending their first wrestling duel at varsity gym this past week, and were impressed. So love to see stuff like that. Love to hear about it. Hopefully, if you haven't made it out, you'll be one of those here pretty soon. Without further ado, let's go check in with Coach Bentley there in the Bentley household. Coach, how's it going in the Bentley household?
Oh, it's going well, Jeremy. Just getting settled in for the evening. My wife just got home with the kids from volleyball and wrestling practice, and getting them fed and bathed and ready for bed and all that kind of stuff. So, typical evening routine. Nice.
Yeah, it's running a little bit late this time. I think the last time we about had him into bed at some point. So yeah. I heard him run around down there when we first come on. So good to see you again, Coach. Coming off a big night, Tuesday night there at Varsity Gym.
Yeah, Jeremy, I was really proud of our team and the way that they wrestled and competed on Tuesday night. It was probably one of the best overall team efforts that I can remember in recent history. And our guys were scoring a lot of points. They were being aggressive and exciting to watch. And, obviously a lot of the fans that were there in Varsity Gym had a lot to be excited about, and, got a lot of positive feedback, like you mentioned, from, some fans that maybe were out at Varsity Gym for their first time and, couldn't believe how exciting it was, and we're excited for their next opportunity to watch us wrestle. So, really can't say enough great things about our guys, but it was a great night on Tuesday night.
Yeah, Coach, you guys have strung some pretty impressive victories, some dual victories together this past week, really, between the try and the duel here. Let's start things off. First, Gardner Webb showed up to Boone. They were kind of tied with the SoCon record. I think you guys were unbeaten at 3 duels, I believe, apiece within the SoCon. So that's pretty good. And we talked about it a little bit before. This is a much improved Gardner Webb team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jeremy, they've had some really, some great matches this year. I mean, I know that they beat some quality programs like George Mason. I think they beat them pretty handily, and they beat they won they'd won all their conference matches before us, and they wrestled a tough schedule as well. I mean, they wrestled Michigan State, and I think had a pretty decent showing against Michigan State, and I think we just had a really good night on Tuesday night, but I definitely think they're a much improved team.
Yeah, for sure. Coach, we started things off right away. Caleb Smith, a fall against the Gardner Webb fellow there. Caleb is that kid is on fire, Coach. I mean, I know you see things that there can be an improvement with, but man, he is putting it together so far this season.
Yeah, I think the exciting thing is he's getting better and he's growing each and every day. I mean, I don't think you've still you've yet to see the best version of Caleb Smith, and he keeps improving. He's hungry. He works like no other, and he's a scary competitor. So really happy with him and kind of the improvements and adjustments he's making.
Yeah, it could be a pretty special season for that young man for sure. Already is stacked up to be that way. Cody Russell back in the lineup, 133. Coach, good to see him back out there with a major decision.
Yeah, he had a good match. I mean, it was a good opponent. I think that was the returning third place finisher in the Southern Conference last year, and Cody was able to kind of open the score and get a good margin of victory there, and ended up getting bonus points for us with a major decision.
And then I know Heath a little bit disappointed in that forfeiture he had to step out on the mat to take, but definitely took the points there. John again, 149, another fall for App.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think John had a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth after the performance he had against the last week's try meet. I don't think he felt like he wrestled, very sharp, and so he took out a little bit of an aggression on that opponent, and was able to lock up a cradle and get a pin early in the first period.
Yeah, he had mentioned that he felt like he was a little bit reserved. I think maybe is probably the best word to describe the performance at the try. So, not surprising to see John come out there blazing, and like you said, take a little bit of frustration out. So, good fall there. Went right into it with Cody Bond. Took a fall with Cody Bond, or Cody got a fall at the 157 with Cody Bond as well. That was interesting to see Cody do that. Cody's usually one of those wrestlers that grind out the points, so had to be a good victory for Cody.
Yeah, Cody's another one, man. That's really he's shown a ton of improvement here over the last couple of weeks in the practice room, and obviously it's nice to see it start taking shape in competition. And another great victory for him. I mean, he wrestled an opponent that I think last year he had a couple of close bouts with, and so being able to kind of dominate that match, I think was really great for his confidence and kind of shows that his growth and kind of where he's headed.
Yeah. And Coach, going into 165, obviously our special guest that we have waiting there in the green room for us tonight, Will Formato. Coach, I said it going into the match. Obviously, RJ is not an easy opponent for anybody. 165, I would probably say, is probably the toughest weight class in the SoCon. If I'm not mistaken, there was 4 qualifiers in that weight class last season. It's probably one of the stacked weight classes, and again, Formato took this into extra innings there in the end, and kind of explain that ending, how that ended in Formato's favor, if you don't mind as well.
Yeah, well, I think Will tell you, I don't think he was real happy with his performance the other night. I mean, he got the job done, so hats off to him for getting the victory, but I don't think it's how he or I would have liked for the match to have went. He was very reserved and conservative, and didn't take a whole lot of risks the other night, and therefore obviously in a low scoring match anything can happen, and he ended up having to go overtime, and went through the first overtime period with no takedown. And this year the rules have changed, so in the first 2 minutes or from that this year, the first overtime period is 2 minutes instead of 1. And if either wrestler gets a takedown, or a score in that period, then the match ends. And if not, it goes to the first set of tiebreakers. Well, in previous years, the first set of tiebreakers a winner could only be determined by a difference in the score. It couldn't be determined by riding time. But part of the new rules is that riding time can decide the match in the first set of tiebreakers. So in Will's match, for instance, the other night, he rode out his opponent for his entire turn on top, and then when he got the chance to go down, the wrestler dropped to his leg and started the neutral drop down count. And when the wrestler got to 5, the referee held up the stall warning for the drop down call, which stops riding time. And it ran off, and it stopped riding time for 2 seconds before they went out of bounds, which I think there was maybe 8 seconds left at that point. And then obviously I went over to the head scores table because I knew that, and I wanted to make sure that they had stopped riding time so that Will would have the riding time advantage at the end of the period. If he didn't get an escape, he would win anyway on riding time. And so there was a little bit of a fiasco. I don't think anybody in the stands had a clue what was going on, or why Will won that match at the end of the second set, or the first set of tiebreakers. But he won on a riding time advantage of 2 seconds. And
wow.
So that was what the deciding factor is in that match. And it stops riding time when you get called for stalling on a drop down count. Otherwise, guys would in overtime just drop to the leg and game the system and try to ride out a guy by dropping to the leg.
Interesting. Yeah, I knew that there was a change this season, and we were on a Twitter space since I wasn't able to be there, and kind of chatting through it. I didn't understand the way that it changed and it came to the riding time, but definitely Will was able to squeak it out for sure. Will seems to always have those matches that just are grinders, right? Like Will is going to be in that fight no matter what the score. I think the week before he was down 6-0 and almost the first 30 seconds and ended up grinding out that match to take that victory as well. So Will's one of those guys that's going to grind it out. Don't ever count him out for sure. He's going to be in it to the end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's a testament to him and the kind of toughness that he has that, even when things aren't going well or maybe he's not got his best stuff that night, he's still finding ways to grind out and get the victory. And I think that's a testament to him and his character and just kind of the toughness that he has as an individual. But, that happens. I mean, it's hard to stay sharp and be at your very best for the entire season because it's so long. And he's had some really good matches this year. And, his last couple matches, he's not really wrestled his best. But even without his best stuff, has been able to come away with a victory. And so I think that's there's something to be said for that, being able to grind it out and get your hand raised even when you don't have your best stuff. And I think he'll grow from it. He'll take confidence from it. And, we'll get him peaked and ready. And in March, he'll be wrestling the best he has all year.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a lot to be said for that. I said it the other night when I talked to Tony. If you're winning at that level and not bringing your best every game or every duel or every individual match, you're doing something right? The guys that you're competing against at that level is just as good or better. Some of those guys are having their best nights and still able to grind out those wins. So, yeah, great individual match there with Will. Interesting ending, but appreciate the insight on that. Thomas Flitz steps up, major decision on his dual or individual match there at 174.
Yeah, and once again, I was proud of Thomas. That's an opponent that he had a close match with at the conference tournament last year, and really, was separated only by a couple of points, and he was able to widen that margin of victory for the duel, and get us bonus points at that weight class. And so I was proud of him for opening up the score, taking more risks, and doing what it took to put more points on the board.
Yeah, great effort there with Thomas for sure. And as you said, those bonus points, those obviously didn't come into play with this duel, but there will be, and there has been duels where they do come into play. So great to see that. The only one we didn't take away that night, Jaquan Anderson over Barrett Blakely. As you said in the beginning, Jaquan a qualifier. Barrett was in there till the end, and he definitely didn't give up. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Barrett competed hard. I mean, I definitely think he wrestled a hard match. I think there was a couple of positions that, he got, just kind of got beat in a couple of positions that he can't get beat in. And, we talked about it, watched film, and, he knows kind of the adjustments he's got to make to turn that result around. But I was definitely not disappointed in his effort. I thought he had a good effort in the match, and gave himself an opportunity to win. But obviously he's got to capitalize. He gets in a couple of those positions. He can't. We can't lose those positions. And when he gets a chance to get a score, he's got to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Yep. Good season so far though by Barrett. I mean, it's been impressive to see him step into that role and continue to get those points for us, and a lot of the effort so far this season. So, good effort, like you said, by Barrett. Coach 197. Was he 3-0 right now? Wyatt in that starting position?
He lost at Duke. I think he lost his first match the night we pulled his red shirt. But I think he's 3-1 since having his red shirt pulled.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wyatt's obviously he's been. I tell everybody he's kind of thrown to the fire, right? True freshman, stepping up to the D1 level and finding himself in the lineup. And obviously not the first time this has happened in App State history, because of our depth isn't the greatest as some of our opponents are, but definitely has stepped into that role and embraced it. I'm sure he's probably working hard in the wrestling room and absorbing everything that he can and trying to improve every little bit that he can.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he didn't expect to be, in our lineup this year. I think he thought that he was going to redshirt this year, and that was, for all intents and purposes, that was the plan. We were going to redshirt him and let him get some experience and wrestle in some open tournaments. But obviously when the injury took place with Mason Vasella, we didn't really have much of a choice. We had to pull his red shirt because we had to have somebody that could fill that weight class. And so far I think he's done a phenomenal job. I think this is probably going to help expedite his growth, being in our lineup and wrestling, the starting schedule. And he's getting big matches in varsity gym and really is rising to the occasion. And I've been very pleased with him and his progress and his improvements, from one match to the next. I mean, there's been a distinct jump. Each match he's wrestled, he's definitely made adjustments and improvements from when we pulled his red shirt 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Hopefully he continues to grind it out, work hard in the wrestling room, stay disciplined, and do what you and the coaches coach him to do, and continues to improve and make that progress. This is, it's not ideal, obviously, but this is a big opportunity. Half of his class will never see that starting lineup their freshman year, so big opportunity for him. He's got a few seasons left in his eligibility there, so he could really make strides here. And if I'm not mistaken, Coach, Anthony on Gardner Webb is not a pushover. Like, he's a fairly decent wrestler.
Yeah, he took third in the Southern Conference last year at heavyweight, and he was the number 2 seed in the conference tournament at heavyweight last year. And he's a good wrestler in his own right, and he's got experience. I think he's a 5th-year senior at Gardner Webb, and that was a very very good win, the other night over a quality opponent. So, it wasn't like it was a weaker opponent. I think that's one of the stronger guys in their lineup, and a true freshman stepping out and getting his hand raised in that scenario. I couldn't be more proud of Wyatt.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of history there too, right? One thing that I do like about wrestling is it's a really small world, right? Like, college wrestling is really, really small, and you know this more than I do. I was told that Anthony's father was beaten by Coach Ian Miller's dad at the Ohio State Championship in high school.
Really?
Yeah. So Zebulon, obviously, the Millers family, they've wrestling runs pretty deep up there in Ohio. So he was the one to drop that little bit of information. And like I said, you guys know just as well as anybody that college wrestling world is pretty small. Heavyweight, Burchell is just putting it together, Coach. I mean, Listen, I like the heavyweights more than anybody. Those guys impress me because I can relate to what they're trying to move around out there on that mat. Burchell looks like a completely different guy out there on the mat this season.
Yeah,
he steps out there confident. He puts it together. He never stops, never gives up, and is always pushing. It seems to be a completely different kid out there.
Yeah, I think the one thing you've seen out of him the last 2 starts, the last 3 matches we've had varsity gym is, he's out there executing holds and skills, and that's exciting to watch. And he put a lot of points on the board. And I think, a lot of people love watching heavyweights that like to attack and score points. And, he was able to go out and get a major decision the other night and, get out of his comfort zone a little bit. But, yeah, I thought he had an outstanding performance and actually, wrestled a style that's fun to watch and, puts people in the stands.
Yeah, you said it there. Last season looked like a little bit of brute strength, right? Like trying to win off of strength. As you said, it definitely more skilled, more technical, trying to score those points and with technique and not so much with just brute strength. So that may be a big part of it. But Bruchel is looking phenomenal out there. Great effort. Hopefully the work that he feels that he's doing in the room is paying off for him personally, because definitely good to see him in the victory side of the duel.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, Coach, I know you've got some stuff coming up here, so we're not going to keep you any longer. Definitely appreciate it. Tell us a little bit about what we have coming up this weekend there in Varsity Gym.
Yeah, so Saturday we host the Appalachian Open, and this is an open that we always hold in January. We'll have a couple of our starters wrestling in it. It won't be our entire starting lineup, but there's going to be a great field there. North Carolina, Virginia, the Citadel, Gardner Webb, Chattanooga, and then a couple of other schools, Life University. So we've got some different schools from different divisions, but should be some great competition there. Wrestling starts at 9 a.m. and should be a good full day of wrestling.
Yeah. If you're in the Boone area, Saturday looks to be a questionable weather day. Stop in the Varsity Gym. It's always warm in there. I can promise you that. It's one thing you're going to find out. You would think being in wrestling, the wrestling venue would be a little bit cooler for those guys, but I think part of JohnMark's plan is to make sure everybody's sweating by the time they leave there. So stop in that Varsity Gym. You will stay warm, and you're going to see some phenomenal action on the mat. That is for sure. Some big schools, and I'm sure there'll be some big names out there getting some work in on the mat. Coach, appreciate you, man. Excited to see what's happening with wrestling and hear all the new people that are chiming in on it. You guys are doing great stuff there in Varsity Gym.
I appreciate it, Jeremy. Have a good night.
You too. Hey, let's go check in with our special guest over there. And let's see if we can bring that's not Will. You guys don't want to see me any longer. Let me see if we can get Will on here. Hey, there he is. Hey, Will, appreciate you hanging out in the room there, waiting for your coach to get off the in front of the camera. How are things going tonight?
Things are good, man. We had lift at 5, and I've just got some dinner and just relaxing, kind of settling down for the day.
Nice. So we talked a little bit about what you're doing in the season so far, and kind of the past couple of matches you've had recently. Kind of give us your take. How is it that you're feeling? What's your take on how your season is going so far for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just we're getting into the grind of the season. It's getting to kind of the later part of the season. We're getting into conference matches and just scrapping out. Sometimes I think my past 2 matches haven't been exactly what I wanted. The first match, obviously, I just kind of got caught in a place I didn't want to be in, but I was happy with the outcome of that and how I was able to come back. And then the last match, just not really executing the way I wanted to against an opponent that I know kind of knows myself and we know each other pretty well. And I've got to find a way to get through guys like that. But other than that, man, I mean, I've just been really enjoying competing, really loving the process like I always have. And I'm excited for what's to come, honestly. Yeah.
Got number 16, Will Formato, with us tonight. As you said, you're definitely grinding it out. You're one of those guys. I think the try before one of those individual matches, you were down by 6 points, almost, if I'm not mistaken, maybe, Will, in the first 30 seconds of the match. And of course, it doesn't take anybody that realizes what happens in wrestling. That's a big hole to climb out of. And you just kept grinding and grinding and grinding. And if I'm not mistaken, you won that match like in the final few seconds of it with a takedown.
Yeah, so I actually ended up winning it in overtime in
That's
the
right.
first 2 minute period. But it was pretty close. And then, yeah, I went down 6-0, and then I got an escape, and he had a minute and 20 something seconds of riding time. Definitely not ideal, not where I wanted to be, but we train for stuff like that. We work hard, we get tired in the room, and we know what we got to do when we get into a situation like that. And Coach Miller really preaches this, and it's just you get one at a time. One at a time, you look for the next score and the next score and the next score, and then it just kind of works itself out. You just got to stay gritty and just stay in the match and not kind of get too emotional about certain calls or where you're at, and just keep scoring points.
Yeah, that probably comes with the experience, right? Like understanding and having the confidence, like I can do this. It's a big hole that you're going to climb out of, but you can rack up those points and get back to where you need to be.
Yeah, I mean it's all just self belief and being in that situation before, and then just knowing who you are, knowing that it doesn't really matter, and really just giving yourself no option. Like, hey man, I'm not losing this match. I'm going to do whatever it takes, and if it gets taken out of my hands, and that's one thing, but I'm not going to lose because of something that I did. I gotta find a way to win this match.
Yeah, it was great for sure. This one a little bit of an unusual finish on Tuesday night, but great explanation by Coach. Did you realize that going into those final that you kind of had it there with those final 2 seconds, or was it kind of up in the air for you as well?
It was completely up in the air for me. I had no clue. I had no idea what they were even arguing about. I knew he had gotten a stall call. I didn't know if he had gotten one before that. I was kind of confused, and he had like tried to ride out on my ankle. And luckily, they sent us both to our corners, and that's when the coaches explained to me, like, "Hey, that he got hit for stalling, his riding time's off. Like, basically, just don't do anything stupid."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Okay, I can try that at least." And yeah, I mean, that's a crazy situation. That's definitely not the way I wanted to win.
Yeah.
I wanted to get a take. I didn't want to take it overtime in the first place, and then I did definitely wanted to get a takedown in the first ride out. But I kind of knew uh, throughout the match, and especially when it got to that point, like I knew I was going to win. I just didn't know how. I knew I was going to find a way, but then not really the way I wanted it to be by any means.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure that you definitely want to go out winning scoring points instead of a ride time, but that's kind of what's different about this overtime this season, right? Like, I remember previous overtimes you had to score something, whether it was an escape or a takedown or something, or a stall or whatever it may be, but you had to score something. So a little bit unusual from what I'm used to seeing with winning out on just the riding time alone. So, but great effort. I mean, I don't know that there's anybody that has the stamina that you do with the past couple of matches, duels that you've put together in individual matches. So great effort with that. What do we have to look forward to the rest of the season, Will? What's the outlook for you? What's your focus? What's your grind right now?
Yeah, I mean, we got Chattanooga coming up, and we got this app open this weekend. We got a bunch of competitions still left, even though we're kind of getting in the later part. But really, I mean, the goal's always been the same, one match at a time, just keep winning, keep
Yeah.
scoring points, keep putting points on the board, and then make it to that All-American round and get the job done, and just do what I got to do. That's always going to be the goal. That always is the goal, and I'm really, really looking forward to getting back at the NCAA tournament and getting what I've been working for.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that you are. Well, you've got a little bit of time, right, in the starting lineup for App. If there's other kids that are coming up in high school or even grade school wrestling that might be listening or watching to this at some point, what would be like the best piece of advice that you'd give somebody that's got that eye on a Division I wrestling career, with your career so far? What's the one or two words of advice that you'd pass along?
I think the biggest piece of advice I like to give, because some kids do ask me this, and it's really interesting because there's a lot of different things, but I think the biggest thing is just to learn to do the hard things, to be gritty, and show that in your wrestling in high school. And then a lot of programs will be interested in you just for that kind of situation, especially our program. Like when you do the hard stuff, even if maybe you're not the most skilled, most talented technical wrestler, when you do things that that kind of show your character more than your abilities. That kind of interests people because they can fix the skills that you don't have. They can teach you those skills. They can develop them as long as you're willing to work at them and be responsible and coachable. But the stuff that they can't teach is the grittiness and the being willing to do what other people aren't, being willing to just get tired and to train hard and that kind of stuff. It's just not really something they coach. It's something that you got to have and you got to be able to develop yourself. And I think that's the biggest piece of advice I can give is when it comes to those areas that don't require talent or skill, really developing yourself, your routine, your habits, your diet, your sleep schedule, how coachable you are, stuff like that. That's a big factor.
Yeah, good piece of advice. Those are the immeasurables, right? Stuff that doesn't show up on on the stats for takedowns or escapes or anything like that. But those immeasurable qualities and characteristics that coaches obviously are looking for. Great piece of advice with that. So the last time we talked to you, we've learned about what you like about Boone and the ins and outs of Boone and campus life and that sort of thing. Let's talk about the characters in the wrestling room and in the locker room. We had John on the other night, and I didn't know it, but I guess John is kind of the self-proclaimed Coach Bentley impersonator. Is that true?
Yes, I'm pretty sure before the duel the other night, John was joking with the ref as we were walking down, impersonating Bentley to the ref, and the ref seemed really confused, but it was really funny. John's definitely one of the best at that, and he cracks me up all the time.
So, do you do any good impersonations of anybody on the staff?
Not really. I'm not a big impersonation guy. I definitely like to give all the staff as much crap as I possibly can. I love that. But I'm not really much of an impersonator, sadly.
You're not the impersonators. So what's the who's the characters on the staff? What is it something about Coach Miller? We haven't heard much of Coach Miller's character other than he's just a coach and he's a good wrestler.
Yeah, Coach Miller's kind of tough to describe, and I think he gets like a bad rep of being like really serious and like just like this hardcore dude. And I mean, he is when he wants to be. But he's such a cool dude and he's really nice and he's funny. Like he's got some funny stuff when he starts opening up. But he's definitely just a wrestler at heart, like when things get competitive, when we get down to wrestling, you can tell he breathes it. But he likes to crack jokes with us and have fun and I think people don't get to see that side of him, and it's an awesome side of him, but he's funny, man.
Nice. What about Randall, Coach Randall? You obviously have spent some time. I believe he was his last year, right? You wrestled with him as a teammate his last season as a starter, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I was fortunate enough for that situation. I got to learn a lot from him when he was in the lineup, and now he's on the coaching staff.
Yeah, he definitely a beast in the lineup, right? That's one thing that I remember Randall wrestling. I believe it was the 197 is where he had his starting spot the last season there. So what's some things about Randall that we might not know as a wrestler, a coach? You've obviously spent some times with him on both sides as a teammate and now as him as a staff member. What's something that we don't know about Randall?
Well, so Randall, I love Randall, man. Like I loved him when we were teammates. I love him now that he's a coach. Like he's such a good dude. So funny. I love messing with him, and I always joke around about how I could blast double him and stuff like that, just because he's such a big dude compared to me. But Randall, the worst rep that Randall gets is his driving. Randall gets a lot of flack for his driving. Apparently, he's a little more on the heavy-footed, just wants to get home when he's driving the van kind of route. So he gets a lot of trash talk for that. That's kind of the biggest thing that we like to mess with him about is that he has a real lead foot, and it's funny. He gets so mad.
Yeah. So is Randall taking over Ryan's spot in that spot?
Yeah. Honestly, we've had a pretty bad track record, I feel like. Miller is the opposite. Miller is like too safe of a driver. He gets flack for that he goes too slow, and then we end up getting back like 30 minutes like later than we should have. And then Randall's on the opposite end of that. But Randall definitely took over that spot from what I can tell. And part of me is like, oh man, like that's funny they mess with him. And then the other part of me is like, well, if I want to get home quick after a duel, an away duel, like maybe I should get in the van with Randall, and then at least like I get back an hour early, 30 minutes early.
Yeah, there seems to be that one person, sometimes two, when Dom was on staff. I think it was between Ryan and Dom as the worst two drivers in the to get in the van with. So there seems to always be that one guy that either people really don't want to ride with or people want to ride with.
Exactly, yeah, and they'll let you know immediately, like you don't get away with anything, man. The coaches, when it comes to driving the vans and stuff, like people give them so much flack whenever they get the chance. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, you probably got to have thick skin to jump in that driver's seat. Above anything else, is probably
Exactly.
the driving. Yeah, I can imagine. What about the wrestlers, your teammates? What are some characters in the some personalities in the locker room and wrestling room that we may not know as spectators?
Oh my goodness, who isn't a character on this team, man? I don't know. I mean, we got so many different people from so many different backgrounds, and I love them all to death. Like, man, I love this team so much. Just this year, the past few years, I've been fortunate with just a group of guys that work their tail off, but they're also just great people to be around. Probably one of my favorites to mess around with is Cody Bond. I mean, he's one of my main training partners. He's my warm up partner every time before every match. We have the same routine we go through, and every week for Power Hour, that's who I go with, and the day before a match, like we're real close, and I love messing with him. He's just so goofy, man. He's one of the goofiest dudes I've ever met. But when he gets on the mat, he's serious, which I love. But man, he's funny, he's silly, he's like a child at heart. And then I love messing with my roommate Barrett. He's one of my best friends, and we pretty much make everything a competition whenever we get the chance. When we're in the weight room, when we're in the wrestling room, and I'll my favorite thing to do is we'll be jogging around the room, or we'll have sprints or something. And if I get ahead of them, I'll hit them with that God, who is it in the NFL that hits the peace sign every
Mm.
time they get the touchdown? I can't remember who it is. I think he's on the Chiefs, but I can't remember his name. But I give him a taste of that every single time. And then whenever I'm in the weight room and I'm doing more weight than him on something, I make sure he knows it. But Barrett's a real. He seems stoic, but he's pretty funny too. He likes to talk trash back. He's getting better at it. And another guy, Wyatt. Wyatt, he's new and he's a freshman. A lot of people don't know him, but he's really funny too. He's real goofy. He seemed real reserved when I first met him, but he's kind of opening up, and really great kid and hard worker, and just another guy that's really fun to mess with.
Yeah. When you're thrown in the mix like Wyatt has been, you really don't have a choice but to open up a little bit more, right? Now he's on the starting lineup. He doesn't have much of a choice. So Cody, I think you hit it with Cody, right? Like every time I see Cody Bond, he's got a smile on his face, almost to the point of right before he steps on the mat to wrestle. It's like he's always
Yeah,
smiling. So seems like he has a great personality, but like you said, definitely got that good personality where he's always having fun.
yeah, he's awesome to bounce off with. I think that's something that we do a really good job of, and a lot of guys on the team is just keeping the energy high, keeping the excitement high, and just having a good time. And he's really easy to kind of have a good time with. He's always in a good mood, always positive, and uh, just fun to kind of bounce back and forth, just be silly together and mess around with. And then when the match time comes, we're right back to back. Even if there's an intermission, it's like we're right back to back. So we kind of just get serious together, and then when it's all said and done, we're right back to just messing with each other, and it's a good time.
Nice. What's it like rooming with Barrett, moving into the starting lineup this season? That's got to be pretty special feeling, right? When you see a guy that's your roommate that's kind of setting behind somebody for a few years and finally gets to step into that role.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it's awesome. I always knew he was capable of it, and I always wanted him to get there. And we've been rooming for 3 years now together, and so it's awesome to finally see him get his chance in the lineup. And I think he's making the most of it, and I think it's been really helpful for him, just kind of the talking to me and being able to bounce off. Like it's his first time in the lineup. There's a lot of things that you kind of mentally and physically you go through, and you're like, man, I've never experienced this before. And so I try to help him as much as I can, kind of give him advice on mistakes that I made when I first started and stuff like that I can try to help him avoid, and trying to help him like kind of get his mental state right. And I think he's doing a great job of adjusting and really making the most out of his last season.
Yeah, I don't know that Barrett is one that needs to cut weight or has a hard time cutting weight, but I would imagine that transition for anybody, right? Like if you go to the starting lineup and having to cut weight or make weight, that transition alone, people, you see the physical part of it, right? Like spectators see what happens and the endurance and everything else that's needed. What we don't see is what it takes to get there. Like what it takes to step on the scale and make it past that scale has just got to be a tremendous change for a lot of kids that step into that starting role.
Yeah, and I mean it's a lot of that, and it's a lot of just an unknown territory of, hey, like people are counting on me now. I have a lot of responsibility. Like, and on a team like ours, it's great because we have so many great wrestlers and everybody's winning like their matches. They're getting the job done, and so it's tough. You don't want to be that guy that doesn't. And so it puts a lot of pressure on you. And I felt that pressure a lot my redshirt freshman year. And I try to help Barrett with that because it's tough when you're not used to the crowd and you've only been competing at open tournaments or whenever they have extra matches, but you really haven't been that guy. And so it's tough, but I think he's made the adjustment and he's good to go. And I love watching him compete. I love cheering for him. He's one of my best friends. And it's just really been a great year to see him flourish like that.
Yeah, for sure. Will, we definitely appreciate you, man. Is there any parting shots, anything that we should know about the characters on the team or the staff or anything like that before we let you get some rest tonight?
Not really. I mean, just keep looking out for us, keep watching us. We appreciate all the support always, whether it's watching online or coming in person or even just following results. We got a really special thing going here, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Will. As I said and Coach mentioned in the beginning, just seeing people comment recently within the past week about their first experience at Varsity Gym and how amazing it's been. Listen, folks, I'm not lying to you. When I tell you right now what happens in Varsity Gym on that wrestling mat is every bit as exciting. You take, everybody knows App State and Boone for the football environment, but you take what happens in Kid Brewer and you pour it in the Varsity Gym. That's literally what's happening. Much more intimate. I mean, the crowd, as you will see, you walk in there, you're standing right on the mat. I mean, right next to the mat. You're right there in the action. So if you have not checked out a wrestling duel or try in Varsity Gym, do yourself a favor. The next one right now that's on the calendar is a big one, right? February 13th. I'm not going to jinx anybody, but what I will say, it's come down to this duel the past 3 or 4 years at least to determine the conference regular season championship. So listen, if you haven't been there, take that opportunity. I can promise you when Campbell comes to town, it will be wild, and that will be February 13th in Boone. And I can promise you Varsity Gym will be packed, and it'll be a great atmosphere. Last season, I will just tell you, it didn't go App's way, as Will tell you. Had a pretty, it looked pretty good going into some final matches, but Campbell squeaked it out in the end. Good effort by those guys, but that's not going to be what happens this year. So looking forward to it. We'll appreciate you this evening again, man. Look forward to seeing you back in Varsity Gym again soon, and look forward to watching the rest of your season for sure.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I always appreciate it, Jeremy, and I appreciate everything you do for our team. And anybody that's watching, make sure you make it to the Campbell Duel. It's going to be a war, and we're excited.
Yes, sir. Good to see you, Will. Have a great night.
Good to see you.
Man, the best part of what I do is talking to these guys. I say it again, time and time again, and I'll continue to say it. When you get to know those guys like I do, you get to see them. I've seen Will at gas stations running back and forth to football games. So and his crew. So it's good to see these guys. It's good to chat with them. It's good to get to know them off the mat. I hope that it makes the people that are watching or listening that haven't been want to go and experience that. Will's ranked 16. Get that, 16 in the nation in the 165 weight class. That's something special, folks. And he wrestles right there in Boone, North Carolina. So go show those guys some support. They'll be in town. I'm not sure who on our roster is going to wrestle on Saturday. Coach probably doesn't even have that decided yet. But go check them out there. There's going to be some great competition with some great schools and other wrestlers, great other wrestlers from other schools there in Boone wrestling on Saturday at the Open. So go check that out. If we don't see you there, make it a point. February 13th at Varsity Gym needs to be packed. I know they say it, but I will tell you the crowd definitely makes an impact, right? And as everything and everybody knows in Boone, it's never a friendly environment for the opposing team. So if you can show up, definitely appreciate the support there. Appreciate all the support from our listeners, the tips in Rockfin and the subscribers on Rockfin. It's not cheap doing what it is that we do with the streaming and everything that we do there. So we definitely appreciate that support. Thank you again for tuning in. And as always, go Apps.
This has been a production by Yosef Media.